Welcome back to the channel where we explore, learn, and theorize about the Marvel Universe. Today I'll be breaking down the 4th episode of Loki, so if you haven't watched it yet or you don't want any spoilers, then don't worry. You can watch the first half of the video normally, where I'll be talking about Black Panther starting filming and the official plot leak for Black Widow, but I'll let you know when the spoilers are coming because there will be a lot. Now let's get started. Kevin Feige told Variety that Black Panther Wakanda Forever has officially started production in Pinewood Studios in Atlanta. Next, I'm putting the spoilers for the 4th episode of Loki before the Black Widow one because that one is actually real, and none of us have watched the movie yet because it hasn't come out. Whereas if you haven't watched Loki yet, you can do so right now and then come back to this video. So again, if you haven't watched Loki episode 4 yet, or you don't want any spoilers, then click off the video now, as I'll be breaking down the episode and covering all the Easter eggs. The episode continues from where episode 3 ended, with Loki and Sylvie stuck on Lamentis 1. From there, an unknown Nexus event is triggered, which notifies the TVA, allowing Mobius to save the Lokis. They're brought in and taken to separate rooms for interrogation, but Sylvie enchants B-15, showing her past before the TVA captured her for being a variant, wiped her memory, and forced her to work for them. We also finally get Sylvie's origin, and we learn that her birth was a Nexus event. So when she was old enough, the TVA captured her and erased her timeline. She was then tried just like Loki, but she didn't have someone like Mobius who helped her out. She stomped on Renslayer's foot, stole her temp pad, escaped, and has been on the run since then. We also see that Renslayer is the villain like I previously called, and she's been manipulating everyone, especially Mobius, who in this episode finally sees her for who she is. He asks her if he can ask C-20 some questions, but Ravonna tells him she died. And as we learn later in the episode, she was killed on Renslayer's orders because she knew the truth and was a danger to her plans. We then cut to Loki telling Mobius that the TVA is lying to him, but Mobius doesn't believe him and sends him to a sort of looping time prison where he's repeatedly beat up by Lady Sif for cutting off her hair. He finally breaks and apologizes to Sif, which is when Mobius brings him back to talk. He tells Mobius that they're all variants who had lives before the TVA, but thinking that it's another attempt to trick him and escape, Mobius sends him right back into the prison. We then cut to B-15, who instead of killing Sylvie, asks her to show B-15 her past. She realizes what the TVA really is, and in the end, helps Sylvie and Loki. Renslayer finds out that Mobius stole her temp pad and learned that she had been lying to him all along, and Mobius gets erased, but as we've seen in leaked photos and later on in this episode, Mobius isn't dead at all. Renslayer takes Sylvie and Loki to the Timekeepers, but that's when B-15 appears, giving Sylvie a weapon, and a huge fight breaks out. After defeating everyone, Sylvie throws the sword at the Timekeepers, cutting off one of their heads, and we see that I was right all along. The Timekeepers in this universe are just animatronics that Renslayer uses to keep power over the TVA. Does that mean that they never existed? No. The whole story could be real, but maybe they died a long time ago, possibly during the multiversal war, and she's kept them alive this way, keeping their power for herself. Anyways, in the end, Renslayer gets back up and erases Loki. Then, taking the opportunity, Sylvie captures her and forces her to explain everything, which will probably be revealed in the next episode. Also, if you didn't stay till the very end, you missed the post-credit scene, which shows Loki waking up and seeing Jack Veal as Kid Loki, Richard E. Grant as Classic Loki, and 2 other versions of the character, one of which was an alligator. So it's very likely that we'll see Vote Loki in the next episode. And lastly, this article from The Hollywood Reporter literally breaks down Black Widow in more detail than you'd get if you watched the movie. So please do not watch this if you don't want spoilers for Black Widow. If you want to watch the movie without knowing what it's about, click off the video now. Anyways, the article says, scripted by Thor Ragnarok co-writer Eric Pearson from a story by Jack Schaefer and Ned Benson. The plot is situated between the events of Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War, but it's also sufficiently self-contained to work for anyone who hasn't been keeping up with the Marvel industrial complex. A post-credits recruitment scene with a surprise cameo from a major name star seen in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier indicates possible future installments that will bring at least one key character here back into the S.H.I.E.L.D. adjacent fold. And I assume that this is the Thunderbolt scene, but instead of General Ross being the one that recruits Yelena and gets the blueprints for Taskmaster, it'll instead be Valentina Allegra de Fontaine who will put the team together. They continue with the attention-grabbing opening sequence starts out like a Terrence Malick remembrance of a sun-dappled childhood before igniting into a suspenseful escape scene that might have been lifted from The Americans. The young Natasha is a tomboyish preteen with a mop of acid blue dyed hair, tooling around on her bicycle in the leafy Ohio town where she lives with her family in 1995. Her 6-year-old sister Yelena scrapes her knee and gets comforting kisses from their mother Melina, who reminds both girls, your pain only makes you stronger. But the tender family scene is shattered when Father Alexei returns home with news that they need to make a hasty exit. Narrowly evading authorities and a barrage of gunfire, they fly to Cuba, where their identities as Russian intelligence agents posing as an American family are revealed before they're separated. Alexei expresses relief that his 3 years of thankless undercover obscurity are over, finally allowing the Red Guardian to get back to the super soldier duties for which he was trained. but his boss, General Dreykov, seems more interested in the feisty spirit of Natasha, who is fiercely protective of her kid sister. Cut to 21 years later when Natasha is a federal fugitive being hunted by a SWAT team under the direction of US Secretary of State Thaddeus Ross, forcing her to leave the country and go into hiding in remote Norway. Meanwhile, Yelena, now a highly skilled assassin, is in Morocco, having defected from Dreykov's ranks and removed a tracking device planted under her skin. She outmaneuvers the female kill squad sent to eliminate her and gets away with a case of vials containing an antidote to Dreykov's chemical compound designed to inhibit free will. The globe-hopping plot then shifts to Budapest, where Yelena is holed up in a safe house and has just enough time to get reacquainted with Natasha in their slam bang style before an armored vehicle is chasing them through the city streets. The deadliest of Dreykov's soldiers on their heels is a microchip-enabled mimic, programmed to replicate any fight skills, including those of the now disbanded Avengers. If all this sounds like an overcomplicated plot, well it is. So it's a welcome respite from the almost non-stop visceral action when Shortland pauses long enough to allow Natasha and Yelena to re-establish the frayed bonds of their non-biological sisterhood with some scenes of good-natured teasing, banter, and rivalry. Somewhat jealous that Natasha is a hero to little girls while she remains in the shadows, Yelena has a take on her sister's signature hair toss pose that's especially funny. But whether the narrative is an amped up overdrive or idling, the director and her magnetic cast keep us fully invested in their cautious reconnection and their ability to survive a series of life-threatening encounters. The personal stakes are heightened further still when Alexei and Melina re-enter the picture. The first in a thrilling Russian prison breakout and the latter on an isolated farm where she's testing Dreykov's mind control programs on hogs. Gradually the pieces come together to reveal the nefarious Puppet Master's Red Room training camp, where orphaned or abandoned young women from around the globe are transformed into his widows, a kind of fembot army of blindly obedient killers. I recycle trash and give them a purpose, says Dreykov. I give them life. It's in the epic battle to take down Dreykov and destroy the off-the-radar Red Room location that the film goes beyond the mere appearance of female representation and becomes a narrative entirely shaped by the fearlessness, smarts, and coolness of two young women determined to liberate legions of others from inhumane exploitation. The ultimate and patriarchal evil, Dreykov, congratulates himself on his genius in utilizing the only resource the world has too much of: girls. His plan is to command the widows to gain control over international centers of power. There's a sly nod early on to the outsides of supervillain nature of his ambitions, when Natasha chills in her wilderness trailer in Norway watching the cheesy 1979 James Bond space entry, Moonraker. But what makes the script so appealing is the balance of espionage intrigue akin to the Bourne movies, hard-hitting physical action with the emphasis on hand-to-hand combat over weaponry, and unconventional family dynamics. Unanswered questions that have bounced around in the heads of Natasha, and especially Yelena for 2 decades, surface in charming scenes at Melina's hog farm. Rachel Weisz plays the exchange with frank honesty tinged with regret, while David Harbour brings a goofy, endearing quality to his tattoo-covered tough guy. There's genuine poignancy in Yelena's struggle to believe that any part of the familial bond of her early life was real. The remarkable Florence Pugh, who just keeps getting better and better, brings warmth and complexity to the internal conflict of a woman trained to think not emotionally, but tactically, yet unable to suppress her feelings. Her sparky chemistry with Scarlett Johansson yields many lovely moments of resilient sisterhood. And while this isn't quite a Natasha Romanoff origin story, it does dig deep enough into the character's pre-Red Room history to expose the raw wounds of a stolen childhood, which Johansson plays with touching vulnerability. It's to her credit though that while the film bears her character's name, it's very much an ensemble piece for the 4 leads. And this is really unfortunate because I already made 2 theory videos for when I go on vacation where I reference the red vials we'll see in Black Widow. In the videos I hope that the vials will be some kind of super soldier serum, which could explain why the Abomination looks different in Shang-Chi, but we now know that they're used to control the Widow's minds. And since these videos will come out after Black Widow, my only excuse now is that I made them before watching the movie. But since I already put so much work into them, I think I'll upload them anyways. So let me know what you guys think about all this. What did you think of Loki Episode 4? Do you still think that Kang will appear before the show ends? And what did you think of this plot leak? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you'll never miss another video. Thanks for watching, and remember to wash your hands and stay safe.